This episode is sponsored by KMV Travel, a boutique travel agency that helps families plan personalized vacations and create unforgettable memories on land and at sea. Not only are their services 100% complimentary to guests, but there are some incredible offers that this team can help you take advantage of right now. From hello to see you real soon, KMV Travel provides the resources and support you need to have a stress-free vacation filled with magic, memories, and more. Listeners of this show can learn more and start planning your next vacation by visiting kmvtravel.com/skyway. Welcome aboard Imagination Skyway, your grand podcast tour of the magic. I'm your host, Matthew Kroll, and in today's episode, I have the honor of welcoming back former president of Walt Disney Imagineering and Imagineering Global Ambassador, Bob Weis. In our previous episode from last month, Bob and I spoke about his career at Walt Disney Imagineering and his new book, Dream Chasing. In this episode, Bob returns to discuss a separate book available for purchase, a work of fiction based on the Haunted Mansion called Ghost Dog. Our conversation not only includes a discussion of his book, but also a bit of Haunted Mansion history and Imagineering. While this episode is shorter than our previous one, it is still a fun conversation I sincerely hope you'll enjoy. At the end of the show, we'll return to Imagination Central, where I'll share ways in which you can stay connected with Imagination Skyway, how you can discuss this topic with others, and how you can help support and inspire the future of this show. Please remain seated, keep your hands and arms inside the podcast at all times, and enjoy your Grand Circle tour aboard Imagination Skyway. A few weeks ago, I interviewed Bob Weis about his 40-year career at Walt Disney Imagineering and his new book, Dream Chasing, which you can now purchase online or at a bookstore near you. Today, Bob joins me once again to continue our conversation, this time about his new novel, Ghost Dog, the story of a boy named Herbert who rides the haunted mansion only to discover that a ghost dog has followed him home. The book is available to purchase on October 15th, and I am very excited to chat about the story and about the Haunted Mansion with, once again, Bob Weis. Bob, welcome back to the show.
Hi, Matt. It's so nice to be back here. So great to talk to you again.
Yeah, it's a pleasure to have you back on the show. And I'll start by saying rare to see an author publish two books so close to one another. And in this case, the books you've created are rather different. One about your career and the other a work of fiction, although they both involve the Disney brand. So there's some overlap. What inspired you to write Ghost Dog?
During COVID, we were all on Zoom, and I was kind of probably like you, driving myself crazy all the time. And I needed a creative outlet, so I gave a try to writing. And it was actually Ghost Dog that I wrote first. And my young life and my adult life, I've had dogs, and I just love dogs. And I started thinking about the Haunted Mansion, which is an attraction that I just love from the history of Disneyland. And I said, well, what if a kid went through the Haunted Mansion and instead of a ghost following him home, a ghost dog follows him home? And so it led to a kind of a story about a kid who's recently lost his dog. His dog died, and family hasn't quite figured out how to get over the loss of the dog. And they go to Disneyland partially to cheer everybody up. And what happens is, as he goes through that famous last part of the Haunted Mansion, a ghost does follow him home. And most of the book takes place outside the Haunted Mansion in about the late 1960s, the year the Haunted Mansion opened. So it takes place the summer the Haunted Mansion opened. And we get to see what happens when a family suddenly has a dog that is also a ghost.
That's incredible. There's also this really classic. Fun. It's
a simple pitch. Ghost dog.
Yeah, it's those catchy names tell you exactly, or the simple names tell you exactly what it is. It's a very, very catchy name. And I pre-ordered the book. I'm very excited to read it.
Oh, good, good.
The As you're talking about that history of the Haunted Mansion, I remember even from the time I was a kid, the one thing that always reinforced the attraction and has some of the deepest memories rooted is actually not necessarily the specific aspects being inside the mansion, but now that you're talking about it, and remember I grew up going to the Walt Disney World version, although I did visit the Disneyland version a couple of times when I was growing up. But even when I was like really young, the one thing that always drew me to it and almost filled me with a little bit of fear was that howling dog outside the attraction. So there's a strong tie to the history of the mansion that way.
Well, I have ingrained in my memory that point where the vehicle sort of turns and you go out the attic window on your back and you look up and you see the attic window, and then you turn and you see this panorama of the animated graveyard there. And off in the corner are some troubadours playing instruments, and there's a cat yowling and there's a dog barking. And I said, well, that's them. That's the dog. And so the dog comes home, and at first only the boy can see the dog, Herbert. And so he tries to keep the dog a secret for a while. And his parents, of course, get kind of freaked out, like, what's wrong with our kid? Take him to a psychologist, kind of a weird Angela Lansbury kind of psychologist. And she suggests that, well, I think you should, even if it's in his imagination, which it probably is, because nobody else can see it, we should just take it back to the Haunted Mansion where he got it. And we'll have a seance at the Haunted Mansion. So they actually go back. They have a seance in the Haunted Mansion. They actually have a seance in a famous room that was never built, which Rolly Crump talks about, which is the Museum of the Weird. Mm-hmm. So I imagined that they almost built the Museum of the Weird, and that's where they go back to have the seance. And they think the dog stayed in the mansion, and they go home. And the next day, the dog is back, and he's brought those troubadours with him. So he has two troubadours and the dog living in their house. And it's just all about the crazy stuff you could imagine if you had a couple of Haunted Mansion characters, including a dog, living in your house, upsetting your daily life. And that's really the fun of the book. And I just love the family, and I love what dogs mean to us. And it's a lot about what it means to have a dog and to love a dog, for a family to love a dog. But it's also an adventure. They go on he and his friend go on an adventure. She lives next door, to try to find out what the mystery behind this dog is. And they go to the Anaheim Building Department, and eventually it leads them to what at the time was called WED. And they find an Imagineer who knows something about the Haunted Mansion, and kind of keeps secret that he knows there's something mysterious inside the Haunted Mansion too. And eventually he has to own up, and they all have to figure out what to do with the dog and the troubadours and get their life back to normal. But George Scribner, who's a wonderful artist, he directed Oliver and Company, who's spent many years as a Disney animator. I reached out to George, and he did 30 plus illustrations for the book. So it's a fun book. It's not a children's book. It's more of a young adult's book, but it's a fun book. It's got lots of great images in it, and it's got a lot of twists and turns.
It's exciting and perfect timing for Halloween. And then
it's coming out just for Halloween, and it also I know you can't see, but on the cover, which is, so you can see, is inspired by the Haunted Mansion graphics, and the inside cover is inspired by the Haunted Mansion wallpaper, the famous Haunted Mansion wallpaper, except it's all redone with dogs. So we play on every dog thing we can do. But the ghost dog cover, if you put it in the sun for a while, if you get this for your kids or something, it glows in the dark. So that's another fun thing about it.
That is very cool, and I will absolutely be doing that, and my daughter will find it fascinating that it gets to do that. So that's incredible.
So I was very lucky. I had taken the book in rough form to a couple good friends. One is Kevin Feige, of course, who's head of the Marvel Studios and the creator of the Marvel universe, and pitched him basically the idea of, well, could we do more movies about people who go to the parks and the adventures that follow them home. And so we talked about this Ghost Dog book. And he wrote for the back cover, Disneyland has been a great source of inspiration for many generations of artists and storytellers, including myself. Its influence radiates through this story. So that was a great comment from Kevin. And then I took it to Leslie Iwerks, who of course produced the Imagineering story. And I was a little worried about taking it to Leslie because Ub Iwerks, her grandfather, worked on the illusions for the Haunted Mansion.
Right.
But she said Ghost Dog is a heartfelt and imaginative adventure inspired by the attraction so many Imagineers were instrumental in creating. I hope this charming tale will always keep you asking, what if? So we got some great reviews already from insiders about the book.
Yeah, those are two glowing endorsements. And you mentioned Rolly before, one of the Imagineers I was fortunate enough to get the chance to interview on the show before, of course, he unfortunately passed away. Bobker was another who's fortunately still around and who I had the chance to interview, and both of them worked on this attraction. I know you started in 1980, so the attraction had been around for over a decade at that point. But as you worked at WED, as you spent some years at Walt Disney Imagineering, I'm sure you heard some and learned some incredible facts or details or aspects of the history of the attraction that I think make it such a popular experience for Disneyland visitors and around the world for at Disneyland over 55 years. What are some of the aspects of the attraction that resonate with you most, whether it's the history or the lore or the details, special effects, things that always inspire you?
Well, I think it even goes back to before the attraction opened at Disneyland. It was a few years that the house sat there, and nobody really knew what it was going to be. And people talked about it was going to be a haunted house and or some sort of an attraction like that. And so the mystery built even before the thing was introduced. And so by the time it did open, everybody had such a interest in it. And it was such a breakthrough of illusions that people couldn't understand, and it's still that way in many ways. That people were really, it was scary. It was just illusions people had never seen before, and the timing of when you go through the graveyard scene, and those kind of ghosts pop up out of the ground, and their timing is not on any sort of sync schedule, so they just really frighten you. It's fun, but it also plays on all of our fears, right? So it's perfect from that standpoint. And so I've always loved it. I've always loved the illusions. I've always loved every scene in it. And you look at an attraction like that, and you could say, well, this is perfect. Mark Davis and everybody that worked on it, it's just perfect. I used to listen to the recordings of Exitencio recording the audio narrations with Paul Frees. And I just thought, I'll never be able to work on anything like that. And then I thought, well, you could write a book about it. You could create a news story that sort of spins off from it. And that's a way to celebrate it, in your own mind. So I mixed reality with non-reality. So it has aspects of the Haunted Mansion, but I also, and they really do go to WED at the time. But I made up the character who's the allegedly the Imagineer who kind of knows the secret behind it. So it's a broad mix of reality and non-reality, and hopefully it'll be very fun for people, especially people who love the Haunted Mansion and love dogs.
Yeah, I think it certainly will. Thinking about its 55-year history, the attraction that is, what do you feel? It's one of those attractions that it's one of those classics, right? There's only a handful of attractions that have been around for now over 50 years that still maintain such strong popularity. What is it about the Haunted Mansion that you think gives it that continued endurance throughout its history?
I just think that they had so many layers that they built in, from music to sound effects to illusions to, they just told such a complete story. And I know we've all tried to write, more detailed canon about the story and about the characters and things in the different locations around the world. But I've always thought that the Haunted Mansion itself, the original, the one I love the most, which is Disneyland, um, it's almost better that you don't know anything about the people or about who lives there or how any of this happened, that it simply is what it is. And it adds to the mystery. And your brain finishes it. You can decide how the rest of the story happened, but you don't need to have the details. And that's really what the concept of these books and excuse me, and Dave Bossert, who runs with his wife, run Old Mill Press, who got the idea right away and published the book for me. He did The House of the Future from Disneyland. That book, he's done a lot of great books about Disney, and he was the same way. It was like we could do a whole series of these great spin-offs that just take a little bit of one of the stories and take off with it. And so that's what he and I are going to do. We're going to keep going on this.
It's exciting. I'm really glad to hear that. And it tied into one of my questions I had for you, which I just have a couple left. And actually, I think that you already answered this one in a couple of different ways, but without giving away any major plot points, Kevin Feige, you referenced his endorsement, which I had read on the Old Mill Press website as well. And he does talk about that influence of the attraction radiating through the story. Are there any additional surprises that fans of the attraction might expect when reading it that don't give away too many major plot points? I know you mentioned the Museum of the Weird, which anyone who knows the history of the Haunted Mansion and Rolly Crump's contributions to it will recognize that. Is there any other nugget or Easter egg that you really love from the book?
Yeah, I think that the Rolly Crump characters, having the interaction with them, that's a lot of fun. I think going to WED in 1967 and talking to some people at WED who aren't real people, but are based on real people I knew, from animation, from illusions, and what it was like to, it kind of really transports you back to that time. And then, what kid or adult for that matter wouldn't love the idea to just, run through the mansion at night, right? I don't recommend anybody do that, but
please don't.
Who hasn't thought or imagined what it must be like to explore all those rooms and see how it all works. So you vicariously get a chance to do that in this book, and also to go to some of the places where they supposedly researched the mansion. Again, this book is fiction, but to go to some of those places and interact with some of the real ghosts and mystics that were based on helping them design the mansion. So it's partly true, partly not true, and I think that might be the magic of it. It's right in the middle. It's obviously fiction, but it's got enough fact basis in it to make it intriguing.
That's incredible. You been talking about wandering through these attractions backstage. That does definitely come up in conversation a lot. In fact, we've produced over 200 episodes of this show now, and it was, I think, episode 3 or 4 that was the topic of conversation, was if you could pick attractions that you could just get a little behind the scenes tour of, walk through, get to see all the everything and how it works. Haunted Mansion was easily one of those choices that came up in that topic.
We're very lucky.
So right.
We're incredibly lucky as Imagineers, because we do get to walk around backstage in these attractions. And, we're there for work. We're there to make sure that every guest sees a great show and that everything's working. But, even if it's 2:00 in the morning, to be able to walk through Pirates, to walk through Haunted Mansion, to walk on the stairs, through Space Mountain with all the lights on. There's not very many people who get to do that. And so we're incredibly lucky to do that. And it's because we as Imagineers have a tremendous sense of the stewardship of how important these attractions are to people and how important it is that everything always be working and everything always be in an optimum shape. So it's fun to do that, but it's also our jobs, right? And so after doing all that kind of thing for almost 40 years, it was very fun to just imagine, let's just imagine a fantasy that could have happened, a could have happened kind of thing.
Yeah. I'll make sure absolutely that everyone knows where to go to purchase this book, and whether it's pre-order or getting it, so that everyone can buy a copy. And like I said, I look forward to reading it. My last question for you, Bob, is last time we spoke, you mentioned how much you love writing books, and you've been alluding to this idea of wanting to write more. So are you already working on your next project? I don't know if you can say what it is, but is there can we expect more from you in the future?
I am. There's another there. I'll just say broadly. There's another book coming out, sort of in the vein of dream chasing. It's a documentary book about another whole topic. Dave Bossard and I are talking about another dog book. So not ghost, something else. Dog. That's as much as I can say. But you can imagine another dog character that's well known at Disneyland that could have an adventure with. And then the big one that I'm immersed in right now is this pretty massive Marty Sklar book. Marty Sklar, of course, ran Imagineering for almost 50 years, was a good friend to all of us, who I knew for almost 40 of those 50 years. And this book is based on a massive collection of his 1,500 boxes, 2 million documents that he collected over the course of his career, some of which go back to 1957, as early as that. And it's tickets, it's sketches, it's scripts, it's edited treatments. It's just so many things that he collected. So the first book about what we call the Marty Sklar archives is being put together. It's going to be a big picture volume with kind of Marty's journey and all of these incredible artifacts that we've scanned, preserved. It's really the most undiscovered single archive that the Disney Archives has ever come across. So that's at least a year out to complete that book too.
Well, sign me up for all those, and the Marty Sklar one. Any Disney fans or Imagineering fans,
Marty Sklar
like
one for any Disney fan is going to be a huge thing, I think, because it's things you've never seen before.
I really look forward to that, so I'll make sure to add all those to my wish list. But Bob, it was really great chatting with you again. I'll, like I said, make sure everyone knows where to go to purchase Ghost Dog. I look forward to reading it as well. And you get more books, we'll maybe get the chance to chat again. I appreciate your time.
I hope so. It was very enjoyable, Matt. You take care.
You too. Welcome back to Imagination Central. As you disembark, please remember to remain fully seated until the podcast comes to a complete stop. Then gather your belongings and watch your head and step as you exit. I once again want to extend a tremendous thank you to Bob Weis for now joining me twice on Imagination Skyway. Be sure to pick up a copy of Bob's new book, Ghost Dog, as well as his other book, Dream Chasing, both available for purchase online or in a bookstore near you. If you haven't done so already, be sure to create a free Imagination Skyway account over at patreon.com/Imagination Skyway. I'm gradually turning this into a one-stop shop for Imagination Skyway content, podcast episodes, and more, so be sure to create a free account there or consider signing up for one of our paid subscription options for even more surprises. In fact, if you have already an account, be sure to leave your thoughts about today's discussion directly on this episode in the Patreon app. Remember, you can also engage with the show on social media by searching for Imagination Skyway on your favorite app or heading to imaginationskyway.com. And if you're ready to book your next Disney vacation or you have questions as you prepare for your next Disney trip, be sure to contact our travel partners at KMV Travel, a sponsor of Imagination Skyway and a boutique travel agency that helps families plan personalized vacations and create unforgettable memories on land and at sea. Kelly and her team are an amazing resource, and I encourage you to reach out to them to take advantage of their expert knowledge, world-class service, and complimentary booking support by heading to kmvtravel.com/skyway or simply find KMV Travel on social media and let them know Imagination Skyway sent you. Thank you so much for riding aboard Imagination Skyway, and remember, if we can dream it, we can do it.